Welcome to Cooking the Books, recipes from the fiction kitchen. But this week, we're not starting in the kitchen, because this week our theme is location, location, location. So behind me is Hayfield Square Police Station, where theoretically Karen Pirie's office and the office of the Historical Cases Unit of Police Scotland is based. Obviously we can't take you into the police station and show you the office because it doesn't actually exist. Over to my right here is Hayfield Square Park, and some of you may remember a terrible incident that happened here a couple of books back. Hello, you've caught me in the middle of a prep. Welcome to the latest edition of Cooking the Books in the Fiction Kitchen with me, Val McDermid. And what I'm doing at the moment is peeling ginger with a spoon. With a spoon. It's the most efficient way of peeling ginger. You just use a teaspoon, it comes off, dead easy, and that's your piece of ginger. The reason I'm doing the ginger first is that tonight we're going to make pad Khing.
Ah, and that's why you've changed your pinny.
That's why I've changed my pinny for the Chiang Mai Cookery School. So very, very appropriately in keeping with what we're cooking tonight. This is doesn't come from a recipe in the new book Still Life, but it does come from a dinner in that book. Karen takes one of her new colleagues, Daisy, to a Thai restaurant for dinner, and this is what Karen has, because this is what Karen always has.
So that's not the Thai restaurant that has the haggis pad Thai then?
No, it's not that one, it's a different one. There's more than one Thai restaurant in Edinburgh. And
are you going to be doing haggis pad Thai at some point?
I don't know if I can really. So what we're doing initially, one of the things that Karen comments on is how much she loves the strips of crispy ginger that go on the top of this dish. So when we begin, I'm going to make some crispy ginger strips, I hope. And this is going to be put to one side as an adornment. While I'm doing this initial prep, I should point out that we have in this bowl here 3 chicken thighs cut into strips and small chunks, and they're currently marinating in a mix of soy sauce, a wee bit of sugar, and probably something else that I can't remember what I've put in there. Perhaps the professor can remind me what I've put in there.
Oh, you can put all sorts in there for a marinade. You could add a wee bit of mirin or a wee bit of dry sherry. Ken Holm always said a wee bit of dry sherry.
Well, a wee bit of dry sherry always helps the chef.
Ooh.
So I'm going to take the wok and put it on the stove. I've got a bit of oil in. I'm using garlic rapeseed oil tonight. The secret of, one of the many secrets of Thai food is to do all your prepping beforehand.
Which you've not done.
Which I've not done yet, but we will be cutting away from the frying of the ginger and the frying of the chicken, and then there will be a pause off camera, because you don't have to watch all the boring bits about me prepping vegetables.
That's what everyone loves, because you prep so well. Your knife skills are legendary.
Yeah. And I should also point out that we do have with us the health and safety expert, so there will be no comments about chickeny hands and chickeny oven gloves tonight, because everything will be done in a controlled manner. So there. So I've got a handful of julienne ginger strips.
They're not very slender.
Well, everyone's a critic. Slender as they're going to get.
Oh, smell lovely though.
Ginger and garlic, always a great combination.
Those are enormous.
They're not enormous. My legendary knife skills have not actually managed to do very julienne strips. But hey, what can I say?
You should have used the mandolin.
Oh aye, because everybody at home would enjoy the sight of me taking my fingers off with a mandolin grater. We do have a mandolin grater, and when we got it, we got the metal mesh gloves that you're supposed to use with your mandolin grater to stop you chopping your fingers off. But we went through the mesh gloves in an amazingly short period of time. We're really not fit to be let out with some of the more dangerous kitchen equipment. So we're doing these wee strips of ginger, or as Joe would have it, big strips of ginger here in the pan, and once they've crisped up, we'll be putting them to one side. As I say, I've got the chicken already here, and I'm going to just put this in the vegetable bin.
So those are browning.
Yeah, they're starting to crisp up nicely. Just like very small French fries.
No, I don't think that's what a julienne was supposed to look like.
Well, julienne's supposed to be a bit thinner than that, but hey, you know, these are just non-julienne de gingembre.
Get you. Hot.
Gingery. I have to say ginger is one of my favourite ingredients in pretty much any form.
You're a big fan of Thai food, aren't you? You've introduced all sorts to
Yes.
the joys of Thai food.
Yes, my lovely colleague Luca Vesti, fine crime writer and also the bass player of the Fun Loving Crime Writers, had never had a Thai meal until we in the band took him out to a Thai restaurant in, of all places, Aberdeen.
I think he was a bit nervous.
He was very nervous. He had to phone his wife and say, well, I like it. And she said, it's just like Chinese, only different. And now he's become an absolute aficionado of the Thai kitchen. So, you know, it's never too late to learn. So I'm going to just put these in a wee bowl for now, where they can be ready to be sprinkled on the final thing. So we've still got a wee bit of oil in the pan. And into that we're going to add the marinated chicken. It doesn't matter if you've not got long to marinate your chicken, just 10 minutes of the marinade will make all the difference. Wow.
I don't think we're going to be able to hear anything over this now.
No, I'm going to have to speak very loudly.
So what are you doing now then?
I'm just browning off the chicken. Well, actually, in this particular instance, I'm cooking through the chicken. Again, we've used chicken thighs. I've done about three chicken thighs.
Three different chicken thighs.
Three different chicken thighs. Possibly not from the same chicken. And because I'm going to remove them and add them afterwards on the vegetables, they need to be pretty much cooked through at this stage. So it's not like when you're doing the chicken and spinach curry where you just basically want to turn them from pink to beige. Here you actually want them to be cooked through. So I'm just going to let them cook through a wee minute. And again, chicken thighs tend to dry out much less than chicken breasts. So when you're doing something like this, you've got a fair chance of them surviving the process and still being tasty and soft and tender as opposed to dry and chewy.
And if you're a vegetarian, you could use tofu?
You can indeed use tofu.
Corn?
Corn. And you could use prawns if you're a fishitarian. Pescatarian, if you like fish. So it's quite a versatile dish, really. So Karen and Daisy settle down to eat their Thai meal, and Karen has a wee sarcastic side comment to herself about Daisy's choice of fish cakes and pad Thai, and she says, like, oh, she's just a beginner, you know, she's young, she'll learn. You know, like Karen, the great gourmet for Fife.
So what did you learn at the Chiang Mai Thai cookery school?
I didn't learn anything because I didn't go to Chiang Mai cookery school because it's your Pirie, as you very well know. I just have a Pirie about killing people. That's what I know.
When the woman was doing the demonstration up at the front before we all were let loose in the kitchen, she was in the middle of chopping ingredients and a mouse fell out of the ceiling.
Oh, good. Did she include that in the meal?
No, but she did say at one point that chicken could be, a mouse could be substituted for chicken if you wanted.
So this chicken is pretty much done now, I think. And that's about right. So I'm going to take this off the heat for a moment, and I'm going to put it in a completely separate bowl.
Oh, I'm going to get this.
From the one it was in before.
I'm going to get the chickeny one out of the way.
Okay. Roughly, it should be in the same universe. So that's going to sit there and wait, and we're now going to do the vegetable prep and then the cooking of the vegetables. So I'm just going to run through the ingredients with my usual detailed measurements as we go. Start with the Holy Trinity: garlic, ginger and bird's eye chilies. It's difficult difficult to know sometimes how many of these to put in because they vary in heat tremendously. So we tend to put in a couple, and if we need to add more heat later, we will add a bit more heat later on. So that's where we start. And then we have our array of vegetables that we're going to add in. We've got a pointy pepper here. I quite like these for stir fries because they're not as fleshy as the rounded peppers, so they don't take so long to cook through, heat through. We've got an onion. Obviously, you know what an onion is. We've got some spring onions that we're going to add some to the mix, and then place some finely chopped ones to garnish it at the end. We've got some mange tout peas, or as my mother used to call them, man get out peas, and some baby sweet corn here. So I'm going to prep all these, and then we're going to get frying again.
Would you like to tell us about your sauces as well?
Yes, my sauces, of course. Well, we have some dark soy sauce here, which we'll add, and this gives us that slightly caramelised feel to it. The light soy sauce we've already used because we used that in the marinade. This is key to the dish. This is the oyster sauce, and we'll be adding that as we go on.
And if you're buying some oyster sauce, if you've not bought it before, check the label, because some of them, the first ingredient's not oyster, it's all sorts of sugars and stuff like that. So check the label, and there's actually now a vegetarian version as well.
Jolly good. So that's if you're using your tofu or your corn. And then we have fish sauce. Fish sauce is also at the heart of this dish, and we are using Vietnamese fish sauce as opposed to Thai fish sauce, because the Vietnamese fish sauce is less salty. So you get that lovely funkiness of the fish sauce without that need to have 15 beers.
And I got another bottle of fish sauce just in case there wasn't enough.
Just in case, because you can never have too much fish sauce. So, prepping time.
Ah, your legendary knife skills.
One of the good things about doing the garlic first is it makes your fingers a wee bit sticky, which makes cutting the chilies up much easier.
Top tips. Now you put ginger in already.
Yeah. We put the ginger in already. That will be a garnish. And this is the ginger that will go in with the sauce and the cooking process.
And you're not peeling it.
I'm not peeling it. No. There's no need to peel it really.
This is going to be a very gingery dish.
Yeah, that's why it's called Pad Khing. It's the Thai dish that has ginger in it. If you don't like ginger, this is really not for you. Pirie loves ginger. So there's your bowl with the Holy Trinity.
I've just remembered the Holy Trinity is
garlic, chilli, ginger.
Spring onion.
Spring onion?
Yeah, it's not ginger.
It's not a Trinity.
No, I can't remember what the Trinity is.
Now she tells me. Okay. See, the professor went to the cookery school, but she doesn't remember it.
We didn't make Pad Khing. They did all the tourist dishes, unfortunately.
Right, okay. So, I'm just going to strip some of these.
The kind of things that Daisy would order.
Aye. So I'm going to slice some. Leave the end really dark bits off the spring onion, because as my mother would say, they're a bit coarse.
So those are going off to one side, those chopped things.
They go to one side because they will be done first, separately.
And could you use any combination of other vegetables that you're about to?
You could use pretty much any other vegetables that you would like to use with it. I mean, there are some vegetables that I think would not be a particularly great companion to this. You know, aubergines might not work so well, for example.
Potatoes.
Potatoes wouldn't work so well, for example. Then you get into the debate of are potatoes a vegetable, which is a debate for another day, not for this day. So I'm going to start with prepping the vegetables that I have chosen tonight. Mostly predicated on what there was in the fridge. Now I'm going to do the pepper. I think I'm only going to do half the pepper because it's quite a big one. So let's do that. Make sure we're clean of all the wee seeds.
Why?
Not very pleasant. I mean, they're not nasty, but they're just not, they don't add to the pleasure of the dish, I think.
You don't need that many.
Let's go to the smaller ones.
So you're getting all your vegetables chopped about the same size so that they cook at the same time, is that right?
Yeah, that's right, so that things are not sitting about waiting for something else to finish cooking.
Everything I learned about this was from Ken Holmes' cookery book. He said get it all ready ahead of time, cut it all the same size. Didn't have
Apart from the mange too, but you don't really cut the same size because they're really skinny.
I don't think we had those when I was learning to cook Chinese food.
Yeah. Well, we certainly didn't have them when I was growing up in Scotland, which is why my mother didn't know what they were called. So, I think we're now about ready to roll.
So what you do now? Oh, new spatula.
New spatula, just for the sake of the hygiene police. You know. What I've done now is I've added some garlic oil to the pan, and I'm just going to let that warm up. And of course, first into the pan will be the holy quadrangle.
And obviously you've not washed the pan because it's got that lovely gingery.
Yes, it's got that gingery chickeniness to it, but proper cooked chickeniness, so there's nothing dangerous about it.
Okay, enough.
Yes.
You've made your point.
And the pan's starting to, the gingery chickeniness is starting to show that it's hot enough to cook with.
That pan does heat up quickly.
It does. So into that I'm going to count this wee dish here of these 4 ingredients. The garlic, the spring onions, the chilli and the ginger. My assistant is complaining that the lumps of ginger are too large. This to me is a sentence that does not make sense. I do not think it is possible to have 2 large lumps of ginger, really, in all its forms. It's particularly nice, though not in a Thai curry, when it's covered with dark chocolate.
So are you looking for that to colour? Or just...
I'm looking for it just to kind of cook through a little bit, to take the edge off, as it were. You don't want it to colour too much, do you? Do I?
No, I don't think you do.
One of the things I think that's quite common amongst police officers, detectives, is the desire to be sociable. And in some cases this takes the form of going out and eating together, in other cases it takes the form of going out and drinking together. And generally it seems to me, as I mentioned at one point in Still Life, the new Cat and Pirie book out in August, is that cops seem to have an affinity for curry. But I think some cops also have an affinity for Thai food.
Well, I suppose, Thai food's a more recent thing, isn't it?
Yeah, the younger generation of cops may have a greater affinity for Thai food. So this is now it. The rest of the vegetables are in the pan. Everything is in the pan now except for the mange too, which I will add a few minutes later. So what we're just doing with this at the moment is stir frying the ingredients in the pan till they start to soften slightly, but not too soft, because we don't want them to be soft. We want them still to have a wee bit of bite to them. But we want that rawness to be reduced, as it were. We don't want great mouthfuls of raw onion. We want a dish that's more subtle than that.
Subtle? With chunks of ginger that size? Good luck.
Very subtle ginger. So you have to keep stirring it about, because that's what stir fry means. Now, some vegetables are starting to colour now, so this is the stage where we need to start adding liquid. So I'm going to start with the dark soy sauce. And as usual, I'd say with the accurate measurements, we're going to have a dot of soy sauce.
I think that's probably enough. I think it has to be enough. I think you just finished it.
Yeah.
Some people would mix their sauce ahead of time, but you're not that kind of a gal, really, are you?
Oh, really, you can let it go along. Because it's not a sauce you can really taste before you put it in the pan. So there's not much point in mixing it ahead of time, really.
About a tablespoon of that.
Yeah, about a tablespoon of the oyster sauce.
Because it's quite rich, that.
Yeah.
That's more than a tablespoon.
Depends what size your tablespoon is.
15 mils.
Oh, listen to you with the measurements. And then a generous dod of fish sauce.
I wouldn't add too much just now. You can always add it
You
later.
can always add a bit more of the fish sauce, probably about that much. And then into that, I'm going to add the liquid from the cooked chicken, which will have.
Gosh, that's a lot. That must have been very watery chicken you bought. You've still not got the Nigella look going. Nope.
Oh well, it's the COVID here, it doesn't help. So as you can see, we've got this stir fried. The sauce is going to reduce a wee bit before we add the chicken back to the pan.
And that's why you don't add the chicken at this point, isn't it? So that it doesn't get boiled.
Yeah, you don't want to stew the chicken. You want it still to have that tenderness and a bit of bite that it has at the moment. At this point, the sauce is reducing nicely, and I'm going to add pinoche too, because they don't actually need very much cooking. But what they do is they give you a wee bit of crunch, but they also give you a wee bit of colour. So you get a nice note of green in amongst the yellow and the red. And we're probably just about at the point where the chicken can go back in, because of course one of the issues with the chicken is that it will bring the temperature down at this point. So we need to let that sauce reduce quite a bit. As you can see here, it's starting to get quite thick and a bit sticky. So I think now is the time to return the chicken to the pan. Okay. So while Karen and Daisy are in the Thai restaurant discussing their case and what the next steps in their case might be, Karen is tucking into a big plate of this pad Khing, and she'll be having it with some rice or some noodles, and that would be my suggestion for how you actually finally sit down to eat this lovely dish.
And a cold beer.
And ideally a cold beer. It's not, these days, a cold beer doesn't have to be alcoholic either. There's a tremendous range of alcohol-free or low-alcohol beers, so if you're worried about drinking too much, then there are other perfect solutions to have a nice accompaniment to your Thai food that still feels like you're having a beer with your Thai food or your Chinese food or your Indian food, and doesn't mean you're going to get leathered in the process.
God, so last week it was hygiene health messages, now it's, you know, alcohol health
Well, I think
messages.
quite a lot of us are maybe drinking a bit more than we normally do with the lockdown process. Now I'm going to taste this.
I've just cleaned the kitchen.
Oh, well, that's really good. Oh yes. So there you have it. Chicken pad Khing.
And what about those bits of ginger you did right at the beginning?
Those bits of ginger are going to sit on the top of it as it's served, which should be just about now really. So what I've done here is a wee bit of rice to go with the pad Khing, and I have added to the basic rice a bit of mushrooms, a bit of spring onion, and a wee bit of New Zealand spinach from the garden, just to give it a wee bit of greenness to make me feel a bit virtuous. Now I'm going to arrange this around the outside of the plate in the traditional way of serving food from Asia that we have developed in this country. I only found out recently why it is that we serve curries and Thai food in this manner of having the ring of rice around the outside and the curry in the middle, which you would never find in the country of origin. And apparently it goes back to the fabled days of Vesta curry. For those of you who are younger than me, Vesta curry was an instant packet curry, which bore very little relationship to anything ever produced on the subcontinent.
It had sultanas
in it. The best Vesta dish was the chicken chow mein, because it had little noodles that looked like plastic. When you put them in a frying pan, they all crisped up. But that formed in our consciousness the idea of what a plate of curry should look like. Exotic food should look like a circle of rice with the curry in the middle. And that's why we eat it like that today, because all the Indian restaurants that sprung up in the 70s and the 80s followed this model of what people expected a curry to look like.
But we're not having a curry.
No, but it's that general thing of it's foreign food, and it's food from Asia, so there was very little differentiation in those days between where the food came from. And to be quite honest, back in those days there wasn't a whole lot of Thai food.
Remember, you're leaving me some.
I'm leaving you plenty. So here it is, Pad King with a wee sprinkling of crispy ginger on the top, which I have cheated slightly with and put it in the oven for a couple of minutes, but it is now crispy. Now I'm going to eat this with my lovely chopsticks. Watch and learn. Yay! This week is a special treat. We're doing some location filming. Don't worry, I haven't driven to Barnard Castle to check my eyesight. This is our legal, regular exercise walk. But today we have taken a route that takes me past a scene from the upcoming book Still Life. Karen and her colleague Daisy have been working hard all afternoon and need something to eat. So here we go. They settled on the Thai restaurant round the corner in Union Street. A pre-theatre menu, Daisy said. I love a bargain. She made a wry face. Must be all those years in Aberdeen. So it's true, Aberdonians are tight. Just as true as what they say about you Fifers, one generation away from the caves. Karen laughed. Aye, but that's true. She chose what she always had, crab in rice paper wrappers and Pad Khing. She loved the crispy ginger that ran through the dish and woke up her taste buds. Daisy was more conservative, going with fish cakes and pad thai. She was young, Karen thought, give her time.